Hey everyone, I am Kate All with Simple Pin Media, and today I'm going to be talking with Kim Six about Pinterest and bounce rate. It's something that I don't know a lot about. I'm really curious about, so I'm excited to talk with her. And just so you know, I run Simple Pin Media, which is a Pinterest management company. We aim to manage Pinterest pages for mostly bloggers and business owners who want to drive more traffic back to their website, but just don't have the time to do it. In addition, I try to aim to teach really actionable, simple tips that people can put into practice on their own Pinterest page. And so that's what a little bit of this blab is trying to accomplish, is we want to make sure we give you tidbits of information that you can take back and do and not feel overwhelmed, but feel empowered to make a quick change that's going to make a big difference. So all that to say, Kim, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you, where you blog, kind of your little background so we know where we're going with you?
Sure. I am a DIY home improvement craft blogger, and I've been blogging for a while, since 2009, actually.
Okay.
But I only started getting really serious about it being like a full-time gig since 2012 or 13. So I'd say I'm about 3 years in of like it not being a journal. And
God.
and I'm really lucky in my niche that in DIY and crafts, Pinterest is like where it's at. You know, it's a lot harder the mommy blog niche, but for crafts and stuff, that's like the holy grail is Pinterest. So being able to optimize my Pinterest traffic has been key to my success. I'd say probably 50% of my traffic is from Pinterest. So
Awesome. Okay.
let me see. And I have 3 kids and I'm really busy. So anything I can do to set it up and let it go and drive traffic is
So true. And I know you get this question a lot, which it was in maybe one of your profiles, but your name actually is Kim Six. It's not something
my maiden name is not Six. My husband's last name is Six. There's not 6 of us. There's only 5 of us, unless you count the cat.
Okay.
But yes, it's really my name.
Okay. I'm sure you get asked that all the time.
The best is like reservations at dinner. Like you'll be like 6 party of 5 or whatever.
Yes. That's true. I didn't even think about that. But it's such a catchy name too. So it really works great with people remembering you and, you know, easy ways to find you. So I love it.
I rebranded with that name because I was something else before. And it was a long story, but I had to not use that name anymore. And when I was writing it, I was like, well, Oprah, it works for Oprah. She's a great name. Martha. So I'll just use it.
That's so true. Go with branding. I love it. It's genius. So in your whole, switch from blogging being just a journal to a business, when did you start using Pinterest and when did you really start to catch on that it was the way for a DIY craft blogger to get more traffic?
So I've been around a long time because I remember when Pinterest, you needed an invite from a friend to join back when it first rolled out. Right?
Yeah.
So I've been
and you felt like you were just waiting to give you an invite. It was like, who's going to give it to me? And,
you don't want to ask.
Nervousness.
Desperate or whatever. But yeah. So I've been on it since the beginning, but in the beginning, I was only using it personally. So, I was collecting all stuff and I look back at some of my old pins. They're pretty funny, but whatever. So in the beginning, I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't until, I don't know. I don't know when it would be. A couple of years ago, maybe, that I really noticed the traffic coming in from Pinterest and thought, you should start pinning my own stuff more than once, because it used to be you pin it once and it was done, right? And then once, pin schedulers came on the scene, and I've used them all: Ahology, Tailwind, Viral Tag. I've used them all. Once they came on the scene, then it was a game changer because I wasn't sitting on my phone in carpool being like, "Oh, got to pin this because this is a good time," or whatever. So, so I would say that the schedulers is what really took my traffic to the next level.
Okay, so what schedulers are your preferred schedulers that you love?
Right now, I use Board Booster. I use Board Booster for all my group boards, and I use Viral Tag for all my new content that I like that comes through. So
got it.
Pinning Jags and fill my Viral Tag queue.
Awesome. So you feel like those two are really good. They've worked the best for you.
Yeah. And I really liked Viral Tag. It just was more expensive. That was really the only reason I don't use that anymore.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Like that.
All right.
Those are my 3 favorite for sure.
Okay. Good to know. So let's see, now that you're using Pinterest, now that you're using a scheduler, let's kind of bridge that into bounce rate. So before we talk about how you really started understanding bounce rate, can you give me especially a little bit of a background, like what is bounce rate and what is a good bounce rate for a blog?
Bounce rate in Google Analytics, the way Google Analytics defines it is, and that's what we're all going to be talking about, is the bounce rate using analytics, is basically the departure rate off of your page. So if people go to, if people leave your page, like how many people leave that page? So if people are only seeing one page that are clicking on one page and immediately leaving, your bounce rate is pretty much 0 because they've not gone anywhere. They've not bounced around. Okay. So you want, your bounce rate pretty much 100%. No one's sticking around. So you want a smaller bounce rate. Less. Okay,
so 100% is bad.
100% is bad. Okay. So the more people that leave, that's the percentage of people leaving off that page, the departure rate. Okay. So if 100% people leave, that's pretty bad. And this is going to be the question that everyone asks. What's a good bounce rate? And it really is hard to say. If you have a really highly driven Pinterest page, your bounce rate, and you're a blogger, your Pinterest page or your bounce rate is going to be pretty high, probably in like the 80s. I would say if it's higher than the 80s, that's really bad, but the 80s is pretty high and pretty average. Okay. If you're like the Wall Street Journal, your bounce rate is probably like 40%. And they were saying that the average, I did a little research, the average over all web pages, including things like Amazon, is about 40%. So,
all right.
So you're shooting to be down near the 40s. If you're really, really low, there's probably something else going on with your analytics.
Yeah, like if you're 10%, that's really strange. Like somebody's really sitting on your site for a really long time.
People hang around your site for hours, and I'm pretty sure that doesn't happen.
Yes, I agree too. Okay, so bounce rate is how quickly they leave your site, and we're looking at a range of somewhere between 70, 60, 90 maybe.
Yeah.
90 on the not
I've heard that, like I've heard for in my niche, in DIY and tutorial blogs, 60% is a pretty good bounce rate.
Okay.
So
got
the
it.
only other thing to keep in mind is, because this is I know some people are going to look at their analytics and like go like, oh my gosh, I'm like in the 30s. You need to split up your mobile and your desktop. They're different.
Okay. So
because mobile,
do you have a
new pages, sometimes the bounce rate looks really wanky for your mobile site.
Okay, got it. And do you, just so you know, for somebody listening who's going, how do I even find my bounce rate? We know it's in Google Analytics, but can you tell them just a quick couple clicks that they can go through?
It should be on the like generic. There's a page that's called like overview. And it's included. It's one of the statistics listed in overview. To split it up between mobile and desktop, which is really how you want to analyze it, because your template for your mobile is very different for your template for your desktop. So your bounce rate's going to be different. You want to go to scroll down to the behavior tab, and there's actually something that says mobile, and you click on mobile, and it'll split all of your analytics into tablet, mobile, and desktop.
Okay. Got it. All right. So for those who are listening, we want to make sure that we look for your rates, but we want to break them down into mobile and desktop. And we're aiming somewhere between 60, 90. So we'll kind of gather that as a range right there, depending on your niche.
And really what you want to do is just make it lower, right? So like whatever it is today, if you can make it lower, just write down what it is today and make it lower. It doesn't, whatever your baseline is, start there.
Okay, so perfect. Let's start there. So let's take where somebody like has their rate right now. So for you, when you finally started to pay attention to bounce rate, what was your bounce rate when you first started looking at it?
So I'm only going to talk about desktop because I use PadSquad or like, AdThrive. I use the thing that monetizes my mobile. So I can't change that template. So I'm only going to talk about desktop. When I started
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. My desktop bounce rate was 85%. which is
Okay.
Got
it.
So that would mean 8.5 people out of 10 would go to one page and immediately leave. They'd either press the back button, they would close the tab, or they would go to a site that was not my own. So if I had like a link to like a Amazon or something, that's considered a bounce because they've left my site. So those are what people are, or they let the window time out, like they open the window and then they never looked at it and it just sat for inactive. That also is considered bounce rate.
Oh, so when people open up a bunch of tabs and they just leave that. Okay.
So an inactive tab, a departure to a different URL, a back button that's not back to your own site, or which is usually what happens in Pinterest. They go in and then they go back to Pinterest, or closing the tab. Those are the 4 ways you can get a bounce. Okay. So I immediately knew that all I got to do is retain those people and I can double my page views, right? Like if every single person that came over from Pinterest to my page went to another page on my site, I now have twice as many page views. And I haven't recruited anybody else. I haven't had to promote anywhere else. So that was the motion behind it.
Okay. Got it. So then 85%. So what steps did you start putting in place first to get that to get them more kind of, I guess, sucked into your site so that they would stick around longer?
So first thing I did was I thought, what sites, because you always hear about like people get on Pinterest and then you get in the black hole, right? Like you get on and you like 2 hours later, you've like looked at 500 things and they're nothing related to what you started, right? So I went to sites that are really good at sucking you in, and they're notoriously tacky sites like BuzzFeed, right? You know what I'm talking about? Where you're like, look at the lady with 7 heads. Oh, and you're like, oh, I've got to click that. It has nothing to do with my reading, but that's awesome. So I went to that or some other one, like those like Upworthy. They're all touchy-feely and there's all clickbaity, and you're like, oh, this is fantastic. I love it here. So I got my site to look like that. And those sites are obnoxious. Okay. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
And a lot of people say, oh my God, I'd rather die than have my site look like BuzzFeed. But there's a reason BuzzFeed is crazy viral, right? So what I did was when I redesigned my site, I thought I'm going to put all of my content that's really closely associated with itself together so that when you come to my site, instead of just seeing the latest post and having everything be chronological, I'm going to have like all of my building projects together. And when you click on a building project from Pinterest, all my other building projects are there. So you're like, oh, that table's cool, but that chair is awesome. And that dresser is really awesome too. And I don't know where to go. Oh, too many things to click. So it got to be kind of crazy because when you go to my homepage now, I have a one section that's chronological. It's the recent posts, but then I have featured posts and posts on food and posts on recipe or crafts and posts on building, and they're all globbed together so that when you go to one, you're kind of distracted by all the other ones. So that was the idea.
Wow. Well, that's such a great tactic because, when you think about it, like you said, you went to BuzzFeed, you went to Upworthy, you went to all these things, you immediately were sucked into more things. And that's what we see about Pinterest too, is that when we click on a pin, what comes up on the right is somebody's board who usually 9 times out of 10 is a very relatable board with more pins that have to do with that one. So you end up clicking and in this cycle. So for you recreated that same type of experience, but on your website.
And you can do, mine is all tag driven. So like when you put categories on your post, I put them into like generic categories, like, whatever, home improvement or whatever. And so that everything home improvement gets clustered as a related topic at the bottom. And there are like plugins that'll do this.
Okay.
You could I have totally reformatted my blog so it always is like this on like every page you go to. There was related content kind of flying at you.
Okay.
So, but you don't have to do it on such an extreme scale. You can even, without coding, just say when you write a post, and this is pretty. I thought this was pretty common knowledge, but the more people I talk to, they are like minds are blown. When you write a post, it's like a recipe, right? You like write a chicken recipe. At the end of the recipe, just put 3 more examples of the other chicken recipes on your blog. It doesn't even have to be like a photo. Like you like chicken parmesan? Here's lasagna, and here's chicken cacciatore, and here's whatever. Because
Mm-hmm.
Because your bounce rate almost always happens when they get to the bottom of the page and they have nothing where to go. I'm done reading this recipe. I'll go back to Pinterest. When really you're like, no, don't leave my site. Stay here. So
yes, I fully agree with that. And I think for anybody really who wants to start out on just that small tactic, I always tell them start with the top 10 posts that are already driving the most Pinterest traffic to your site, because then you have this audience that's already geared to click. They're already geared to look for this. It's popular. So give them at the end, yes, but even throughout the whole post, let them know where else they can click on your website, because you want to take them on this rabbit trail.
You want to have lots of links into your own stuff. Even if it'll rebound, even if they click on it and it opens in another window or whatever, it still will reduce your bounce rate because it's considered a click to another page of your site. So like if you're writing and you're like, remember when I talked about this project I did, and then link to that project. Don't just mention it. You want to link to it, because then if nothing else, that window will open and they'll have somewhere to go. Because the biggest problem you have with bounce rate is they get over there and it's not exactly like they come over from Pinterest. It's not exactly what they're looking for. Maybe the recipe has something they don't have on hand. So you want to give them somewhere to go. Otherwise, the default will always be back. And back is never good for you. Back is always
it's not
someone else's content.
Yeah, especially if you're finding that your bounce rate is 90 or 95%, then and you are getting Pinterest traffic, then there's something that's not resonating with those Pinterest users and they can't really connect with your stuff. So how can you get them more, intrigued, more BuzzFeeded, or, however, to where they're hooked in. It's the hook.
And I definitely think images are better. I mean, it's really, it's a lot of drain on your load speed to have a lot of images, but images work. Right. I mean, you can have a list of recipes on the bottom, and that's especially traffic coming from Pinterest. That's a visual platform. If they're coming in because of visual stuff, then give them more visual stuff.
Exactly. Yes, I completely agree. Okay. So now that you've started using these new tactics, kind of reformatting your site, what changes did you see within the first maybe month and then the first 6 months?
For me, it was almost immediate. It was really ironic.
Oh, okay.
I rolled out my new platform on Christmas Eve. I did it because I wanted to not have a lot of traffic in case it blew up, whatever. Yes. I rolled out my traffic on Christmas Eve, and I almost immediately saw a jump in page views, but not a jump in sessions. And I thought, well, this is really strange. Like I have the same total number of people visiting, but my page views have doubled. And so then I went in and I investigated, and I was like, it's my bounce rate. I've got my bounce rate down. I've got my pages per session down. I went from an average of 1.1 pages per session, which is pretty typical for Pinterest. They come over and leave, to almost 2.4 pages per session, which is a lot.
Okay.
Pages.
Got it.
So
real quick, I'm just going to stop you really quick, just in case somebody's listening who's like a newbie blogger, they're like, oh, I thought page views and sessions were the same. Can you just tell them real quickly?
So a session, I think it's called a session now. It used to be called a unique.
It is.
Back in the day. A session is when somebody comes to your site and hangs out on your site and travels around your site. The action of coming to your site, the person being there, is considered a session. So every new person who comes over is a new session. But how many pages they look at during their visit was reflected in the total page views. So how many pages have loaded and they've looked at. So if you have 10 people, if you have 10 people visiting the site, you would have 10 users. And if every user visited 2 pages, you would have 20 page views.
Got it. Okay. So you were seeing this kind of increase in sessions and increase in page views, correct?
I didn't see.
I mean, you saw the same number of sessions.
Yeah, I saw about the same number of sessions. Because I wasn't drawing more people. My reformatting my template didn't draw more people in. It kept the same number of people drawn in, but once they were in, they looked at more stuff. So changing your template isn't going to help you much promoting anywhere. It doesn't help you on the Pinterest platform per se. But once they get there, and then slowly, now long-term what's happened is because more people visit more pages, more stuff gets pinned. Like instead of looking at one project, they look at 2 projects. And instead of pinning one project, they pin 2 projects. So now, slowly over time, my Pinterest traffic has started to go up. My repin rate has started to go up. Or not repin, new pin.
Awesome. So, and what are you making sure you have on the post that makes it really easy for them to repin? Are you using a plugin or are you doing manual?
Right now I have a really, because my thing is very graphic heavy, I have a really long pin or really long load time, which is one of the questions about the drawbacks of doing this. So one of the drawbacks of having your thing be like, look at me, is that you have so much content you're loading because you're kind of throwing all your content at them at one time. It's really slowed down my post. So I've been hesitant to put any hoverovers or anything on there because I don't need it to be any slower than it is.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I have like all the pin buttons at the bottom. Was all part of my template, like the pin, all the like little social share buttons on the bottom, and I have on my homepage I have some flyover buttons and it's in the sidebar, but I haven't put a hover over on just because I'm worried about the speed.
Well, and also what we find with hoverovers, they don't work a lot on mobile, and so if you're getting mobile traffic, it only works for one section. So I guess it depends on, what the majority of your traffic is, if it's desktop or mobile, which for you, as we're talking here about bounce rate, we've been talking about desktop.
Yeah. And I don't think this is as effective on mobile because of the load speed. Like if your person is loading a long post and they're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, and then you have like 70 other related posts at the bottom, I think it kind of loses its luster.
Oh,
You're better off with like sticking stuff in intermittently, like, if you don't have this ingredient, you can check this recipe within the context of those kind of things will probably work a lot better on mobile just because,
well, we know that the time of a Pinterest user is like 30 seconds or something like that. Like you have this 30-second window to really capture their attention or encourage them to click. So that's why, that those text links at the top, like you just said, if you don't have this ingredient, here's another recipe for you. That's a really great way to hook them in, because that's the first thing a mom at 4:30 p.m. Looking through Pinterest is trying to figure out, what can I make? And if I don't have the ingredients, I'm not putting 4 kids in the car to go to the grocery store for bay leaf. What else can I make?
Yes, exactly.
So true. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and you also use like, sidebar. There's a lot of things on mobile that you don't have on your desktop. So sidebar is great. It's super great for doing related posts, but you don't have one. So this is I'm mostly focused. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So then you were at 85%, and now, so you did it Christmas Eve. So we're about 2 months later. What's your bounce rate now?
It's about 60%. So that means 4 out of 10 people have clicked on more than one page or have not left off of that page.
Okay.
And
so even though you just made the change.
So that's the more exciting part. I was like 240,000 page views in December, and in January I hit 500,000 page views. And I didn't do anything.
Great. Congratulations. You did do something. You know what I tell most people to do is just, you can't apply a strategy that someone else has tried always to your own page, or to your own website, because you have you have unique readers, you have unique users, you see their unique behaviors. And what you did is you discovered something that was kind of off on your site, and then you made a change based on what was best for your platform. And as a result, you were rewarded for that. And I love that, because you understood the culture of your Pinterest page and your website, and you made a change. So, not to say that everybody who tries to put your method into practice will immediately drop their bounce rate, but at least it's a good tip, and it's something to try in order to increase page views like you did.
And I definitely think it will be different. It will be different levels of effectiveness for different people, because my site before, I was all about like, let's see how clean we can make it. And let's see, I want it to be minimalist or whatever. And so I was to a dramatic difference, like a big difference. A lot of people already have like a few related post items, or, they'll have features in the sidebar already. And so then this isn't that major of a change. So they might not see the same kind of impact, but
Right.
For me, the goal was just to get it down at all, and to just get my page views up without having to create new content, or without having to feel like I had to up my social media game, because I feel really burnt out on promoting myself.
Yeah.
So I thought if I could just double my page views once they're here, that it's way better than me having to go out and find new people.
I think especially when you've been blogging for such an extended period of time, that is just a mountain of content that you have that a lot of people have never seen. You know, if you've been blogging since 2009, that's a crazy amount of content that could be repurposed or linked to without you having to keep reinventing the wheel over and over.
Oh, sorry.
And to not, it's okay. And to not be crazy too with the social media game. Because you're right. In the last couple of years, social media has become exhausting. It's not the same as it was, you know, you throw a post on Facebook and it goes crazy and you're good. Now there's so much more work that goes into it, and that is tiring. So I just think it's awesome that you tried this other trick and it worked.
I also think if you can show someone coming over from anywhere, Pinterest or anywhere, that you have more than one good post, like you're not a one-trick pony, you're more likely to get them as a long-term reader or as a subscriber. Because, you know, it's really hard to convert Pinterest traffic to like subscribe or whatever. They come over from Pinterest, they want to see they want to download your one printable and leave. But if you can get them to say, oh wow, her printables are all really cool, I should sign up for her newsletter. I mean, you can you can convert, and those are the kind of like long-term fans you want, because then you don't have to constantly recruit.
Yes, it's so true, because I know, even for me, once I get hooked into a website, or once I like a recipe or like a craft, I become trusting of what they're offering me. So then whatever I see of the rest of their content, I know it's going to be good. So then I'm hooked in. I always go back to the same recipe sites because the past 3 or 4 I've made have been awesome. So I can trust them. The same with you, a DIY. Like, yeah, I like the way, you know, maybe you teach, or maybe you explain in your tutorials, or whatever it may be. And that's how we really get that growth of the subscribers and the loyal fans that end up sharing more of your content and doing some of the social media work for you, which is such a good strategy anyway. So okay, so let's see. I'm trying to think of what else we had some questions here, but we kind of just breezed through them really fast. Let's see. I think we've done pretty good actually covering most of the things we had planned to talk about. Any kind of last pieces of advice for anybody who is a new blogger? They're new on Pinterest. They're just starting to figure out this whole craziness of, you know, not just Pinterest, but also bounce rate. What would you tell them to just, I guess, calm them down in their, you know, frenzy?
I think, especially in the beginning, it depends on what you do. My site's really diverse. Like, I do crafts and recipes and DIY. So I have a lot of content that's like randomly all over the place. And that can either be really good for you, or it can really hurt you. And you have to, it all is about how you manage it. So, so if you're new and you have 3 recipes and 3 crafts and 3, you know, printables or whatever, you want to make sure that you're keeping all of them together, so that when like a new person comes to your site, they can see that, you know, they can see that you do what they're interested in. Because the last thing you want is them to come to your site and be like, I love printables. And you're like, oh, great, love printables. Here's a recipe. Because they don't care. I mean, they don't care about recipes. So I think like a really good thing in the beginning is to use your categories effectively. And if you don't have a lot of posts, then use a broader topic, right? Like, so if you do like knitting and quilting and crocheting and whatever, then put them all under the category of like fiber arts or whatever. And so that when somebody clicks on it, it's all categorized under something, but it makes sense. You don't want them to click quilting and you have only one and only pull up one post, because then they're going to not take you as an authority and they're not going to think you know what you're talking about. So, but once you get a lot of something, then I think smaller categories are better. So if you have 1,000 recipes, don't make a recipe tab. That's too generic. If you have 1,000 recipes, make a chicken tab and a pasta tab and a whatever. And it might take time to get there, but eventually you'll all get there. You'll have a ton of posts on things that you can put together. So I guess that would be my biggest tip is, the more specific and the more related to what they're coming over for, the better. So if it's Christmas printables, if you have 50 Christmas printables, then make a Christmas printables category. Don't throw them in with the Valentine's printables because you're just going to lose.
True. And have you kind of applied that same strategy to your Pinterest page? Like you have very specific boards that really line up well with what's on your website?
Yes. So I have I really into decorating mantles. So I have like a board that's just mantles. I mean, it's really, really niche. Not a lot of people have a mantles board, so it's hard to find stuff to go on it. But it works really great because that's my thing. Or I have a silhouette machine. So I have a board that's for silhouette projects only. And then anything that's like a Cricut project, I put on a different board because I don't want someone to come over and have a silhouette and be like, well, this is a great tutorial for the wrong brand of machine. So I think that really helps a lot. Or I have a board just building stuff out of wood. Some people, if some people want to paint furniture, they don't want to build furniture. So you don't want to just have a furniture board because that's really
that's really great. And it also touches on the fact that Pinterest is so strongly keyword based that it's really important for you to title your boards very specific if you're talking about it, because then you want to pull those people in, and then when they click over, you want to pull them in again. So like you said, we don't want to create a board on our Pinterest page that's just recipes, because it can be anything. It can be dessert, it can be dinner, whatever. You want to get very specific and break it down. If you have 100 chicken recipes on your blog, then you should probably have a board that's about chicken recipes and kind of really trying to match them.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you had to remember why people came over in the first place. I mean, I think that was what a little bit changed the way my thinking was. Oh, well, they came over specifically for this thing. I have 1 or 2 posts that are like, ha, 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 and this is what they want. So I'm going to create more content like that, and I'm going to put it with this content. So when they see it, they think, oh, this is great. I mean, I think you got to meet the people where they are. And you have to know what.
Yes. Yeah. And I would say for anyone who's afraid of Google Analytics, which I completely understand, it's an overwhelming place with a lot of numbers and terms and things that people don't understand. Even just diving in for a little bit, just to explore, even if it's what you talked about with going in to look at bounce rate, going in to look at sessions, just really starting to see what the people are doing and not being so worried about getting it right or understanding all of it right away. Just at least start engaging with it so you can get an understanding so that you can know your audience.
And it doesn't have to be cute. I mean, I think a lot of people come to my site now are like, oh my God, your site's crazy coded and it took me 2 months or whatever. And it doesn't have to be like that at all. I mean, it doesn't have to. If you just have like I said, if you just add 1 or 2 things to the bottom of every post, or even in the middle, in the middle of the post, take a break. Oh, look, here's another thing you could try. Yes. So I think it doesn't have to be all or nothing. If you just reduce it a little bit, even if you just reduce it 10%, that's that's 10% more people who have stuck around.
Yes. Absolutely. So, I love that too. Just putting little things into place. Don't make it too crazy all at once so that you're kind of not even business building on the other, side of everything. You're just trying to really make sure that you're focused on what your people want, which is incredibly important. Alrighty. So let's see, where can people go if they want to ask you more questions, or if they want to find you, or even see what it is that you've done on your website to really change, to increase your bounce rate or decrease?
Yeah. And increase my pages per session, basically.
Yes.
You can find me on Facebook at the Kim 6 Fix, and that's where I am.
Okay. Got it. Well, thanks so much. I totally appreciate you coming on here to just talk about this bounce rate and help me especially really understand it and really understand how it relates to Pinterest and how we can change it all up. So if anybody wants any more information about Pinterest, they can find me at simplepinmedia.com. And I have a blog there too. And we offer Pinterest management services for people who are just exasperated with Pinterest and are done. So I would love to help you. You can also find us over on facebook.com/simplepinmedia as well. So Thanks so much, Kim. I really, really appreciate it. And we'll close down the recording right now, but we'll give a couple minutes for any questions if people want to ask them. But if not, thanks again. I totally appreciate it.
Thank you.